Hi, my name is Kimo Griggs. I'm an architect, but I also design and make things. Right now, I'm teaching at the University of Washington in Seattle. Uh, I came from the East Coast and I moved out here about 13 years ago, and it's a wonderful place to be. But I started as an architect. I had an architecture office in Boston, and I did what most architects do. I designed and oversaw the construction of buildings and some associated furniture and furnishings. But I like to do more than that, and I'd like to talk about it. As an architect, I often worked on older buildings such as this, restoring them and modifying them and making them useful for modern life. But I also worked on modern buildings and contemporary buildings, this one in Wisconsin, and this is a school building outside of Boston. This was a fairly conventional practice, but as I designed buildings, I really enjoyed thinking about the details, about how buildings could serve people better, how they could be clearer by perhaps having good signage or an entryway that was sort of unique. These are things that are a little harder to get built because you can't buy them in catalogs. So I would often build them myself. When I started an office, I bought this space, an old printing press near Boston, and I converted it to a nice office. When I converted it, I treated this as a prototype, as something that I could develop that would teach me about design, where I could try things out before I tried them out on my clients, and I could experiment with space and materials and new techniques. So everything you see in here are things that my employees and I actually built. This was the space next door that I turned into a loft where I lived. And again, I treated this as sort of a prototypical space where I could experiment with designs and techniques to find out if they worked before I put them into client projects. Here's a detail of a very special stair railing that we designed and made. Here's the upstairs where the bedroom was. And here's a back stair. We didn't do all of the work on this, but all the detail work of the railings and the treads and the supports for the stairway are things that we designed and made and installed. So I like to make things. I don't know why I like to make things. It makes me somewhat unusual as an architect, but maybe it's a genetic flaw. Maybe you like to do it. And I encourage you, if you like to make things, to go ahead. It's a wonderful thing to do. I had a shop. So below my office, I had a workshop, and it had lots of tools, power tools, hand tools, machine tools like this that I found in different places over a long period of time. And I also had tools that were run by computers. I got into this early and used it to some good effect in my projects. Here I'm making that stair rail part. I also made furniture and furnishings for my projects. Here a bench, storage bench for toys. Here a combination storage, entry piece, and stairway up to a second floor loft in New York. And here a small cabin. I didn't build this cabin, but I built parts of it. And I brought the parts, laid them down on the ground so that the contractor building the building could add them to their building. Here you can see the columns that held up the front porch. And here you can see the trusses that held up the roof. So we designed and made these and got paid for them, but we didn't have to build the rest of the building. Here's another historic building called Wellesley. This is the house called Wellesley outside of Boston. And here we designed and made parts for a porch. This wasn't really architecture as much as it was just design and making specialized components. So we were able to look at the porch and measure it. It was old and sort of wobbly and interesting. And we designed new parts that could fit onto it. Very precise, very straight, and added extra room. This was more design and making. And this is what it looks like today. So that porch is now useful. So sometimes I just design. Here's furniture. This isn't really architecture. It's more product design or furniture design. I design usually in digital format, and then I make things using real tools. Here are 3 matching tables. Here's a detail that I worked out for a range of tables that looked like this. It was called Fetch. And we marketed it in 2 different lengths with many different options. There are some of the tables. So designing and making things, even though we're architects, This is just furniture design. Very enjoyable. And there's the railing system that we built in our apartment. Also just design and making. Many of the things we design specifically because we know we're going to make it. So we can design for making that we know we can do. We can't do everything. So when we design things, we have to think about what can we do, and let's design things that work with that. When I start to design a thing, I start by sketching, sometimes at lunch on a napkin, sometimes at my desk on what we call yellow trays. And then I take those sketches, the best of them, and convert them into a digital model. These digital models can be used to drive digital tools. So here I'm making that railing, different schemes, and eventually I say, well, maybe I like this one, or maybe I like that one. I think I'll try them both. And all the time I'm designing is I'm thinking about how is this going to be made? I can't draw something that's impossible to make. What I know is that I'm going to be using this tool to make this, and this tool can only go up and down and back and forth. It can't turn, and so I can't carve complex shapes. I can only carve simple shapes that go up and down. So when I design it, I know I need to lay it down on the table like this so it can be cut. The blue lines are where the tool is actually going to move to cut this piece out. There it is, cutting it out. And so when I'm designing, I'm always thinking ahead about what tool am I going to use? What materials am I going to use? How is this actually going to be made? So that when I make it, it all works out. This is key if you're going to be a designer or an architect, of course, understanding your materials, how it's going to be made, and how it's going to go together. Today, I've taken all of my training and my experience and I bring it to bear on teaching. I teach at the University of Washington, and one of the primary courses that I'm responsible for is a furniture design course. I often teach this course in conjunction with a Danish furniture maker, and here you can see the results of 1/4 of furniture design and making with 12 graduate students, all made using metal, wood, fabric, and maybe some string. So I design things, I make things, I practice architecture, and I teach. It's a very rewarding combination of activities and interests. It keeps my mind busy, it keeps my hands busy, keeps me out of trouble, and I recommend it to you highly. Thank you.